Okay guys, by now you've been working on your bell work, the vocabulary for Chapter 3 on page 138. So let's go ahead and go over those words. The first one that you had was decimal. And decimals are numbers that have digits in the tens place and beyond. The next one I want you to look at, or that you wrote down, was standard form. And standard form just is a fancy way of saying the usual way that we write numbers down. And then finally, we had expanded form. An expanded form is the sum of the products of each digit and its place value. An expanded form is something that you guys have heard before as well. So for today's objective, it says I can represent decimals in word form and standard form. And our unit goal for Chapter 3, it says I can evaluate real-world examples using multiplication and division of decimals. Now let's look at the other page that I had you pick up off the counter this morning. And it's a half sheet of paper, and it's talking about the unit goal for Chapter 3, and then it has a bunch of I can statements. Today we're going to be working with the very first column because today is day 1. And this is going to be something that we're going to do 5 different times just with this chapter, and then we'll be doing it with every chapter from here on out. So what we're going to do is read each statement, and then you're going to write how you feel about that skill based on the confidence scale that we had hanging up on the wall. So you're going to be rating yourself a 1 through a 4. So for the first one, it says I can write decimals in word form and standard form. If you feel really good about that, then you're going to put a 3 or possibly a 4. So as we go through this, for each one I want you to rate yourself. The second one, I can round, compare, and order decimals. The third one, I can add and subtract decimals. So if you know what to do with a decimal in an addition or subtraction problem, rate yourself appropriately. If you have no idea what you're supposed to do, on the same end, maybe you need to be a 1 or a 2. The next 2 are about multiplication with decimals. The first one is multiplying a decimal by a whole number. And the second one is multiplying decimals by decimals. So take a minute and rate yourself on those 2 things. And then the last 2 have to do with division. The first one, it says I can divide decimals by a whole number. And then the last one, I can divide decimals by a decimal. So take a minute and rate yourself on those last 2. When you are done, you notice that there are holes in this paper. I want this to go into the tracking section of your notebook. Yes, it is the first thing that we are putting in that section. So quickly put that in there, and then I want you to open to the notes section of your notebook. Make yourself ready in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, moving on. Our title for today is just going to be decimals. And underneath decimals, I want you to write expanded form. So when we're looking at expanded form, you're used to seeing, say, we had 543. And maybe your teacher last year said, okay, I need you to write this in expanded form. Well, what that means is you're looking at each individual place value. So here, this would be 500 plus 40 plus 3. We're expanding that number out. Taking this same number, we're going to talk about this one, actually, remember, and I want you to label it this way. I want you to put the old way. This is the old way of expanding. And I'm going to show you a new way. And it's not that we're really going to focus a lot on these two on expanded form this unit, but I do want you to be aware of what they mean. So taking the same number, they expand it out using the base 10. So we would have 5, and 5 is in the hundreds place, so we will be multiplying that by 100. And then adding that to 4 times 10. And then finally 3 times 1. So we have the ones place, the tens place, and the hundreds place represented in this number. So if we were to practice with, for instance, a decimal, we could use 38 and 45 hundredths. And let's write this out in both ways. So here we would have 30 plus 8 plus, now we're into the tenths to the right of the decimal, plus 0.4, 4 tenths is the proper way to say that, and then we would add 5 hundredths to that. So let's pause for just a second and talk about place value. When we have our decimal, most of you know we've got the ones, tens, and hundreds and so forth on going this way. When we come to the right of the decimal, we're talking about values that are less than 1. So this one is the tenths, and for all of these we're going to have that TH on them. The hundredths, and yes, you should be writing this down in your notes. You might have seen the thousandths place last year. And chances are you did not see this next place value, but we're going to see it in today's work. And this is the 10,000th place value. These are the 4 place values to the right of the decimal that we'll be working with this in this unit. Okay, so let's go back real quick and look at this number here. And let's write this in expanded form using the new way. So here we would have 3 times 10 plus 8 times 1 plus 4 times 1/10 plus 5 times 100th. Okay? Again, we're not going to stress out about this concept. I just want to talk about it and make you aware of it. Okay, let's move on to the next concept, which is word form. Looking at word form. So, if you're given a decimal in number format, in standard form, and you were told to write it in word form, this is what you would be expected. So let's take this number, for example, and practice writing it in word form. You read the number as is, saying the family name last, or the decimal, or the place value that the last number is in. So this is 825 thousandths. This is the thousandth place value. So to write that out, we would have 800, sorry, this is an R that goes here, 25 thousandths. Okay? Okay, let me give you one. Write that down and take a minute to write this in word form in your notes. Don't worry about spelling. Try your best. Okay, let's look at this one together. So the first whole number, and then remember the numbers to the left of the decimal are whole numbers. So we have 16, and remember that when we see the decimal we say and, not point. And 8 hundredths. It's not hundreds, it's hundredths. So if you got that right, go ahead and give yourself a quick pat on the back. Good job. Okay, let's do one more together. Let's look at this number. All right, let's try it. Look at the whole number and say its name. We've got 17, and then we say that whole group together. 542, and that is in the thousandths place. Thousandths. Okay, good work. Now let's look at standard form. This is when you see something in word form and you write it in standard form, or the regular way that we write numbers. So, let's take some practice. And let's start with this number. Write that. Sorry, I gave you the standard form first. Give me a second. Let's go with this one. Sorry. Okay, write that in number format, please, or standard form. And I'm going to give you another one, and then we'll go over both of them. Okay, write that one down in standard form. Okay, let's look at this first one that we wrote. 12 thousandths. I don't have the word and in here anywhere, so that is my clue that I'm not going to have any whole numbers. So I'm going to start off with a 0 and then my decimal point. 12 thousandths. I know that I'm going to be going out to the thousandths place. My last number needs to end in this place value right here. So I see the number 12. The second number of 12 to the right is 2. So here we have 12, and then I'm going to fill in a 0. So this is 12 thousandths. Now I look at this next one, and I do see the word "and," so I know that I am going to have a whole number. I have the whole number of 3, which is going to the left of my decimal. And then I have 22 hundredths. So I go out and I draw my place value bars to the hundredths place. I'm going to have 22, and this one fits nice and easy, 22. Okay? Alright guys, now it's your turn to work independently. You're going to be working on page 140, doing 12 through 32, evens only. If you look at the directions starting at number 24, it says to write each decimal in standard form and in expanded form, but I only want you to write the answer in standard form. Do not write the answers in expanded form. This is homework if you do not complete it. However, you must work on it in class. You do not get to save this all for homework. You have to work on it in class. And I want you to be prepared to discuss this tomorrow. Get busy.